Hello, it's Martha Hopkins, aka Mrs. Hopkins 73, and this is episode 2 of 12. Yes, 12. I said before there was 10, but indeed there are 12 episodes of Echo Beach. So anyways, episode 2, I'm calling it Manipulation. We see another angle of the Penn Warden family beachfront home. It's very beautiful, very California style. Susan is straightening out an art print on her wall. Jimmy walks in, and husband Mark swoops in for a kiss on her cheek. She asks, "Does this look straight to you?" Mark ignores her and chats with Jimmy. Susan notices she's being ignored and asks, "Anyone?" Jimmy answers quickly, "No." Then Mark continues on with the chore list for him. Susan asks for a level, and Mark says that there are more important things to worry about than a crooked painting, like what to do about Dan staying in town. Their daughter Grace is eavesdropping on their conversation. Mark says he'll do whatever it takes to get that man out of my life. Mark hardly ever uses the word us or our. He sounds so self-centered. Susan looks worried. Bray asks Dan if he should pack or unpack. Dan says unpack. Bray is happy to hear that. Abby spots Jimmy and Charlie on the beach with a surfboard. Charlie is still clearly interested in Abby. Jimmy says, "I know you saw her first." Grace confronts Susan, asking what the big deal with the Merricks is. Grace calls Bray a beach bum and Abby a wannabe it girl. Then says, "Or is it Dad? Is there something special about him?" Susan acts casual about it. Grace keeps prodding her. There must have been once, and figures out her mom dated him in the past. Susan tells Grace it's all small-town gossip, basically, that's all. Grace asks if he was the love of her life. Susan answers, "No, your father was, ... and still is." Grace stares at Susan with a wide grin. Charlie and Jimmy walk up near the Merrick's soon-to-be cafe and chat about the fight the evening before. How Charlie got in a lucky punch. And Charlie says if Bray tries it again, he won't know what hit him. Bray charges out the front door and Charlie says, "Shit, here he comes," and hides behind Jimmy's surfboard. It is hysterical. Bray asks, "Are you looking for me?" Charlie says, "No." And Jimmy says, "Should we be?" Charlie quickly and smartly insists that they call a truce and they all shake hands. We finally see the trailer park that they refer to as a caravan park. We specifically zero in on Jackie and Ian's Caravan Cafe. Jackie is concerned that the upcoming opening of the Merrick Family Cafe will be competition. Ian sees his landlord Finn outside and he's shaking hands with a bald guy in a suit and tie. Now Ian starts looking worried. Ivy is at the bar with her furry little dog, and Norinda is cleaning up the bar quickly to end her shift. She asks where she is off to in such a hurry, and to stay away from the Merricks. Norinda defends them, saying everyone's harassing them and it's not fair. Ivy is being a crappy boss, reminding her that Norinda had nothing and she gave her a chance. Norinda stands her ground and says something like, "Shame you couldn't do the same." To the Merricks, give them a chance. Give them another chance. Back at the Caravan Park Cafe, Jackie notices that the jailbait Lolita, Grace, is sniffing around and says she's about to go for a swim. Anybody up for it? Ian says he's too busy. He's repairing the trailer door. So Jackie goes off alone, and Grace is smoking a cigarette and goes up to tap Ian on the arm to offer him some. She flirts with him with innuendo, small talk, and very obviously offers herself up to him. Ian isn't taking the bait, and Grace seems surprised and then a little disappointed. Still has that weird, evil grin on her face. Bray introduces Norinda and Charlie to Dan, and Norinda hands Dan a beautiful purple bouquet of wildflowers as a welcome gift. Charlie apologizes to Abby, and then Abby gets Charlie to help paint the shop. Norinda offers up her help. Charlie accidentally gets paint on Abby's tea, but it almost looks like a Galaxy tea now. Not too bad. Maybe Charlie could become a screen printer? Ian asks Finn who the bald guy was. Finn says it was his bank manager. I think maybe Finn had asked for a loan to fix up the caravan park. Or maybe even insurance. Not sure. But the man told Finn it was too risky. Finn is in debt pretty deeply, and the park may be going under in a month. Ian tells Finn he wants to be the one to break the news to Jackie. Narinda is upstairs with Abby in her room. She spots a woman in a picture frame and asks Abby if that's her mom. Abby says she died 2 months ago. Narinda says she's sorry, but Abby seems okay with it and asks Narinda what brought her to town. Narinda lies and says she needed distance from her family, and especially from her brother. Susan is tidying up her living room and finds a pair of Mark's jeans, and an earring falls out from one of the pockets. She picks it up, and she notices it's not one of hers. Charlie, Narinda, and Abby are painting, and Charlie suggests to Narinda to pick a different wall because he wants space to chat up Abby. Abby asks what do people do in Palnarin. Charlie says drinking, partying, you know. And he mentions the beach hut where people go to hook up. He offers to take Abby there if she wants. Abby sounds surprised and says, I can hardly wait, sort of sarcastically. Charlie is sprung on Abby, almost falling off a ladder. Then Dan pops in, giving Abby more money for lunch. Charlie nervously offers to go grab lunch for everyone. Jackie shows up there unexpectedly and asks Dan when the place opens. Dan assumes Jackie's applying for work, but she claims to have come over to introduce herself. Dan asks about her situation, and she tells him that her and her boyfriend Ian just moved there a year ago. He does maintenance at the caravan park, and she runs a cafe. Dan teases her. Oh, you came to check me out. They're both friendly, peace-loving people. They're just joking around, making small talk, getting to know each other. Susan's sitting in the dining room, sad and brooding about the earring. Jimmy goes into the kitchen. Susan asks, lost something? Jimmy says, phone number, and grabs a paper off the counter. Then asks her, have you ever made a promise to someone, realized you couldn't keep it? Susan nods her head, yes. Jimmy asks, what'd you do about it? Susan answers, you do your best. Jackie is in the Merrick Cafe kitchen fixing the espresso machine, and Bray is already giving her the lovesick eyes. Dan and Bray offered Jackie a job right on the spot, if she wants it. Jackie says they know where to find her, but she's happy where she is. Mark is jogging and scopes out the Merrick's Cafe. He sees a gang of thuggy teens and offers to give them cash to do a seedy little hush-hush job. More on that in a while. Susan is out on the fishing wall looking at the ocean. A tardy-looking woman, Angela, approaches her. Says something like, who needs a getaway when you live in a place like this? And Grace reveals that she lives there. Angela calls her lucky, and Susan says, yes, I suppose I am. Angela introduces herself to Susan and tells her, I'll see you around. Jackie gets back to her caravan cafe and tells Ian she went to check out the competition and they offered her a job, but she didn't take it. Ian said he had gone for a walk. Jackie playfully teases him about Grace having a schoolgirl crush on him and that she has good taste. Jimmy spots Abby waiting outside a sandwich shop. They flirt for a bit. Then Charlie comes out with a bag of sub sandwiches. Charlie asks Jimmy if he can help them paint, then mouths the words, piss off to him. So Jimmy says he's too busy. Abby asks Charlie for a soda, so he goes inside. Then she says, where were we? Jimmy acts cold towards her again. So more of the damn hot and cold mind games. Grace sees Jimmy walking around and gives him a hard time about Abby and Charlie. He loses his cool a bit, and she knows she hit a raw nerve. Dan goes outside to paint and sees the word killer spelled out in red spray paint all across the storefront windows. Abby and Charlie walk up and discover it too. Bray sees it and yells, bastards! Abby gets tearful and Dan says, it's going to take a lot more than this to stop us from opening. Ian shows up at the Penn Warden house, and Grace thinks he's there to see her, but he wants to talk to Mark about a business proposition. Mark scoffs at him quite rudely. Dan sits with his kids to explain the town's nickname to him of Killer. He was in business with Mart Penwarden back in the day. A certain boat was fine on the way out to sea. It was a fuel tank that had malfunctioned, and he just happened to be the last person to work on it. So the town ended up blaming him for it, and he didn't have the confidence to stand up for himself back then, so the label just stuck. Bray is hurt that his dad just let the town talk smack about him. Why didn't he defend himself? And the fact that he moved away to London just made him look more guilty. Ian asks Mark for a loan to fix up the caravan park. Mark is acting like a snooty prick again, and even asks Grace what she thinks. Grace is still trying to manipulate Ian. Mark is giving Ian high hopes. Bray and Abby walk to the beach to calm down after the trauma of the vandalism. Mark and his colleague tour the caravan park. They tell Ian they don't want to invest in the trailers. They want the land for housing properties. They give Ian a company card to give Finn. So he screwed that whole deal up. Dan hears some banging outside the shop, so he runs out. Those punk vandal kids Mark hired are at it again, and this time they made copies of the front page news of the boat accident. They covered the whole storefront window and Dan's VW van, even breaking a window on it. Susan runs up to Dan, having seen them from the beach. She's too late, though. Susan says to Dan that he has got to leave. You don't know what Mark's capable of. Dan asks if Mark sent her. Susan says no. Dan says, then why are you here? Susan looks like her feelings got hurt. Dan continues, I ran away to protect you, and I'm not going to keep running away just because Mark wants me to. Susan says, it's more complicated than you know. Dan says his son looked at him today like he was a liar and he couldn't tell him the truth about what really happened. Susan says, Dan, you're not hearing me. This isn't about the accident. Dan's frustrated and demands, well, then what is it about? Susan starts crying and says, I can't. Dan watches her storm off. And that's the end of episode 2. I called it manipulation because Mark and his conniving daughter Grace are so manipulative. That's episode 2 of 12. I did mistakenly say that last time there was 10 episodes, but it turns out to be 12. Still wanted a second season, but that never happened. Also in the last episode, I totally missed the first appearance of Angela, the mysterious woman that introduced herself to Susan in this episode. Angela was casually just ordering herself a drink in the Ivy's bar. So, see you next time for episode 3. Thanks so much for listening to Echo on the Beach, a recap podcast of Echo Beach episodes. Bye!